Hello friends, it's Dave here from SaveDex, here to talk about Super Meat Boy Forever, the sequel to the 2010 game Super Meat Boy. If you want to know what I thought of the first game, then click that link in the description below to see my review, and if you enjoy what you see, hit that like button and make sure you subscribe to join the party and see more in the future. It is kind of strange that they named the second game Forever. The second one should be called Super Meat Boy Returns, then it's Super Meat Boy Forever, followed by Super Meat Boy and Robin, but I digress. What does this sequel bring then? Well, let's start with the presentation, as the difference hits you instantly with an intro similar to the first games, although they've added a narrator here, who does really get into the role.
Dr. Fetus attacked them! And kidnapped Nugget!
The graphics and animation on the whole is a big step up from the first game. Just the cutscenes alone show some beautiful animation. Dr. Fetus is back, and instead of kidnapping Bandage Girl again, he kidnaps their child Nugget. Meat Boy and Bandage Girl, who is now playable from the start, must go to the rescue. To quickly showcase the improvements in the animation, here's a look at the cutscenes that you see at the end of the first chapter in each game, and just see how much of an upgrade this is. This squirrel actually gets his own story arc, and it keeps going back to see what he's up to after each chapter. During the gameplay itself, things are looking crisp and clean, and the music I found to be on par with the original, all good stuff. But that's enough about the presentation, let's look at the gameplay. So although the difference in its presentation is nothing but good in my opinion, the difference in gameplay is more of a mixed bag. It won't be for everyone. You still have to run through the levels, avoiding obstacles and death traps to get to the kidnapped character, and wall jumping still plays a big part. But there are a few big changes. Firstly, it's now an endless runner. Meat Boy is always running forward. Secondly, in this game you can actually attack. And thirdly, the levels are procedurally generated. The fact that I never have to hold down the run button all the time is a blessing, but not being able to stop or freely change direction, while not necessarily a bad thing, is definitely less preferable to me. To change direction, you can jump into a wall, Meat Boy still slides up and down it, keeping the momentum of your jump, which is still satisfying, and when you jump off the wall, he'll be running in the opposite direction. Only 2 buttons are used. Any of the face buttons are to jump, and pressing down is to duck. If you press jump again in midair, you'll do a punch which will attack enemies, and it gives you a nice little boost forward. Ducking also comes with a handy kick. Having this be an endless runner style is a drastic change, and it is commendable that Team Meat decided to take the sequel in a new direction to make it stand out more than if they had just done the same thing again but bigger. The level design is really where it will come down to whether this style of gameplay works or not, and I am pleased to say it really does. For me at least. As I said, it is procedurally generated. When you begin a file, it will load up what levels you get, but if you start a new file, you'll be presented with different levels. In a way, this does give more value to the game. I mean, it's basically a new game every time you play after all. But when I replay a platformer, I always enjoy revisiting levels, and that's how I remember the game. Would people remember the old Mario or Sonic games as fondly if those levels were designed differently each time? When I replayed the first Super Meat Boy recently in order to review it, I smiled to myself as I encountered difficult levels that I remember being a pain before and just saying, bring it on. The combination of difficulty and replayability is what creates memories of a game. If I play a platformer only once, I never remember the levels, and I worry that this could happen here. But if I replay a level on the same file, it will be the same, so you do have the option to play the same game again in a sense. I found in my playthrough the level design I received was really good. I have heard some say they encountered areas that were impossible to pass, but this never happened to me. There were a lot of jumps and dodges that required pinpoint precision, the sections of levels were very well crafted, and it really suited the new style of gameplay. You'll find all sorts of different gimmicks and hazards that I dare not ruin for you, and the game doesn't tell you what to do with them, you just have to experiment and work it out, and that feeling of discovery was so satisfying. To give you an early example, in the second world there were these sections that had this sharp stuff in the background, and being in front of them made this wheel fill up around me, and when it filled up I died. I did not notice that was why I was dying for a long time, because it also happened to be the first level I played as Bandage Girl, so I just assumed she had a character gimmick where she couldn't spend too much time in the air or something. The game is constantly throwing new things at you as you progress, even things that I suppose could be called power-ups, where punching in the air will let you change direction at will, as well as other effects. At the end of each chapter you have a boss fight. In the first game you didn't really fight the bosses, you tended to run from them or dodge them. This time, you really do fight them. It took me an insane amount of time to beat some of them, taking so many deaths before I realised what I was supposed to be doing. They are a lot of fun, and it is amazing how well they got these to work in an endless runner game. So one big thing about the first game was its difficulty, and that really is still there. You will die so many times and instantly retry without skipping a beat. But whereas the first game had very short levels that you started again from the beginning each time, these levels are a lot longer, and they have checkpoints. At first I was disappointed that there were checkpoints, but in the later levels I was grateful for them, as some areas required a lot of attempts before working them out, and it would have been annoying to have to replay a whole level again just to get up to that point. It did make me think that each section that you find between two checkpoints could have just been presented as a self-contained level and have a lot of smaller levels to beat in the game, just like the first one. But if there's one problem I have with the checkpoint system as well as the endless runner system, it will have to be this. Do you remember in the first game, when you beat a level, it would show a replay with all your attempts at the same time? It does that again here, although it isn't anywhere near as good. Because it's an endless runner, at the start you're just looking at one Meat Boy, since they all move the same. And you'll just end up seeing a small number of them die until one gets to a checkpoint, then several more join him, until they die, and then the other one gets to the checkpoint, and so on. I really do miss seeing every single attempt all at once flying all over the place. Those gripes aside though, I did really enjoy this game. For what it is, they have done an excellent job. The endless runner, although not my preference, does work really well, and the levels I got were a lot of fun and the difficulty was suitably high. You just can't beat that satisfying feeling of finally beating a level you've been stuck on for ages. The main story took me just over 5 hours to beat, but there is a post-game to it, and there's a lot of other stuff you can do as well. There are characters to unlock, there are still the recommended times to beat to keep you going on the same save file, and there are pacifiers to find too, which are similar to the badges in the first game. The humour is spot on, the presentation is such a huge upgrade from the first, there are plenty of references to spot as well. It does sit at a higher price of £15.99, so if you don't have the first one but you're taking an interest, I would say get that one first. Not because you need to know the story or anything, but just because I think it's a better game at a lower price. The first game also showcased just how good the developers are at creating tightly designed levels that perfectly cater to the game's mechanics while being excruciatingly difficult but still fair. I would have loved to have seen how good this game was if the levels were all set in stone and expertly crafted to test your skills at these new mechanics. As I said before, the majority of these sections I played would have made fantastic self-contained levels. It's a mixture of really good ideas that results in a really fun and enjoyable game. There's just a few things I'd rather they did differently. So that's my review of the game. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this game. While you're down there, it'll be very nice if you could hit that like button for us and make sure you subscribe for more future videos. So that's all from me everyone. See you in the next one.